we're live on the God is Awesome podcast. I have Josh Kroitor here today, a 15-year-old from Belgrade. Great guy. Has the voice of Earl Jones. So, Josh, your dad was just on the show last week. Now you're on this week. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
We on the show talk a little bit about testimony, about what God's done in our lives looking back. And so in the testimony, we usually talk about the before, then the change, and then the after. So you are a PK, so a preacher's kid. Tell me a little bit about the before the change and what that's like being a son of a pastor.
Yeah. So, like being a pastor's kid, I don't know, like those things are like kind of separate in a way. Like I don't really think about being a pastor's kid that much. It doesn't really bother me. Doesn't have much to do with my testimony, but it's still cool. I mean, yeah. Having I'll talk about this later, but having a dad that is so advanced in his knowledge of theology, I'm going to spoil it. I kind of want to be I feel God calling me to be a youth pastor. So having a dad that's like a pastor and has great theological knowledge, he could teach me these things before I get to college. So that's pretty cool. I'll talk about that later. But as far as my life before becoming a Christian, I was a mess. So I was like in my friend group of friends, I was like the Michael Scott or the Eric Cartman of the group. I was like really the one that no one really liked and the obnoxious one really. And I just witnessed I don't know if they actually felt this way, but it felt like they were just cringing whenever I was around, and I just felt kind of unloved in that situation. But also, I was a ladies' man. All right, so I had feelings for a few girls in my history, and me being the Michael Scott and the Eric Cartman, the obnoxious one. They would always go for other guys, and I would just feel really depressed and unloved, all the more. So, and something that I thought of was that, this situation, I'll get around this, but the society is really a lot more secular than it was 50, 60 years ago.
Sure.
I'm sure this kind of thing happened back then, but not as often as it does now. I just feel even kids my age back then, they might have been raised in the church more. It doesn't even matter that they're Christian, but they're in a loving community in a church and things. And feeling depressed like this, it just, just something that I thought of.
You're spot on. I think depression, I think there's two factors. One, the fact that we hear about it more now has to do with the fact that there's more ways to publicly talk about this issue, which I think is really good. But you're spot on with the idea that there were communities of people, and now we're so focused more on ourselves and individual development and growth and things like that, that we're losing that idea of community. Man, Josh, wise beyond your years. I totally agree. So you're feeling that kind of depression. You're feeling a little bit left out. You're feeling a little bit different. What happened? What changed?
When I moved down to Belgrade, and they got a youth pastor. He's a good youth pastor. He took us to this was even just before he became youth pastor, but we would go to this summer camp for the like a Christian summer camp for the youth. The first time I heard from God was there. And like there was this preacher, this really like high up in our denomination that was preaching at the summer camp. I believe it was in 2017. But the first time I heard from God was then. Yeah, but I'll talk to that in a little bit. But like it's just like the preacher was like, that was the first time I ever like felt engaged in a sermon. Like he was a really good preacher. And yeah, like I said, the first time I heard from God was then, but I actually kind of dismissed it, like dismissed him, like his presence, because like I said before, we live in a very like anti-supernatural culture. So I mean,
Right.
the creator of the world talking to you, like no way. But yeah, and then I was talking about my youth pastor earlier. Like he was a really good he's a really good preacher. He assembles great Bible studies, and I just like that was the start of the process. Like I think Lake Swan, like that's the camp that I went to. But like yeah, also just his Bible studies for the youth. I just I grew from that. So that was the start of the process.
So you had somebody in your life, multiple people actually, that kind of helped you be in a place where God spoke, right? Like God spoke into your life. That's awesome. And so that's how it all began, and it helps through people. So those of you that are listening, man, I just encourage you to be that kind of person. Like the individual was to Josh, this guy that had a profound impact on his life. What's his name? Give him a shout out.
Mike Covey.
Mike Covey. So this guy, Mike, thanks for being there for Josh. If you're watching, it's not a wasted process. Keep doing what you're doing. So Josh, we're at this point where you have this experience where you hear from God. When you say that, there are people that aren't Christians that maybe and other people your age that might not know exactly what do you even mean by that. Did you hear an audible voice? Did you feel some kind of something?
Ooh, that's gonna be fun to try to answer.
Yeah. On the spot.
Yeah. So like when I say that this person at Lake Swan was a good preacher, like it's not that like I visibly just like not visibly I do not see God. He's immaterial. But yeah, I just like God could speak through like Christian preachers. Like and you could sort of like when the mood is just right and like when he's just going at it and he's preaching, like it's really hard, but like God, like when people are really engaged, God could speak to some people and you could hear him kind of, and it's just a little whisper, and it's really interesting. But
it's more so for me, like I'll give you an example, maybe put words around what you're trying to say. It's not like even the term a little whisper insinuates that there's like word. I like in my story felt God, and I knew like it was almost more of a thought exercise than a verbal exercise. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Like I just in my life, I felt what God was trying to lead me towards, what He's trying to say, and where He's trying to, even though I didn't hear some kind of audible voice. Is that more what you're talking about?
yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so what'd you do next?
Yeah, so as like I would keep on going to like more like annual like Christian summer camps, and I even went to the like a conference for my denomination and things like that, and they would keep on furthering the process. But
cool.
Yeah, so like when I dismissed after I dismissed the feeling of God like whispering to me, like I wasn't really a Christian then. It was just the start of a process, like from hearing from God, and like I don't know, something was going on. I don't know exactly what it was, but like I was just really scared of like going to hell, and I wanted confirmation that I was really a Christian because like hell's bad. Yeah. So when I went to the conference for my denomination, there was another speaker there, and I don't remember what he preached exactly, but overall the message was that like in order to become a Christian, you have to like submit your life to Christ. Like you have to like he went into more detail about what that's like, where like literally like every aspect of your being is like just about just like if you hear God telling you to go somewhere or do something, you do it, and just like whatever he says goes, and just try to listen to him and just trying to be all about him. So that was the day where I just decided to like submit my life to him and like become a Christian because I really didn't want to go to hell. But then afterwards, when I got back from that, I like this is something that I feel like a lot of like people in their processes to Christianity like face is just they just like they have trouble just like they it just comes out of laziness. They just have trouble like trying to read the Bible every day and get closer to God because like since then I think their lives have been just like you do this, all right, like I'll give it me for example, like every day before then like I would just do video games every day, just video games all day, schoolwork, video games, go to bed.
Sure.
And that process I think just got ingrained in my head that it was just it just got like hard to change, I guess. And like I just had laziness to change, and I didn't want to read the Bible. I was just too lazy to do it. Yeah, I feel like that's just something a lot of people in their processes to becoming a Christian face.
Yeah, I think for me, I had that same kind of situation where I'm just totally focused on anything else. Do you feel like that in your life?
Yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
huh.
wait. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Oh, sorry. What I said is like in the midst of that, you feel like anything else matters, and you just anything that can distract you. That's what the world does.
Yeah. Oh yeah, honestly. Yeah. Because something you got to realize is we live in the kingdom of the kingdom of this world, which is ruled by Satan, and he's going to do everything he can to keep you from like joining the kingdom of God. He's going to distract you with that the media, like video games for me in my case, like just he's going to do everything in his power to try to keep you from growing in your spiritual journey, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the idea of like an enemy, and sometimes we think about the fact that I don't know, we forget that there's anything else other than just what we're really focused on. So what I mean by that is that the like you said, the enemy of this world, the ruler of the air, is working and like messing with stuff like that. That's an interesting thing. But the good news is that death is swallowed up in victory, right? So this we already know that Satan is conquered, right? So we have this fact that we know how the story ends, is what I mean by that. So that's cool. So tell me more. What happens next? How does your life change?
Well, I'll tell you what happened next. I went to a missions trip to Savannah, Georgia. And I actually find this interesting because I saw Jake's podcast episode.
Okay.
And it said that he said that he also went to a missions trip to Georgia, which I just found funny. But all right, I'll tell you what happened here. So every morning before we went off to do missions work, we would fill out these devotionals that walk through the book of Philippians. And I remember it was the third day. The third day, I was filling out the devotionals, all the questions. I don't remember the questions exactly, but one of the questions, like as I was writing the answer, just really started to just poke at me. And all of a sudden, I felt God's presence really, 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 really clearly right there in my face, telling me, yeah, you should be a youth pastor.
Oh, wow.
And I just started crying right there in public. And when I was the 40-minute drive to the school that we were gonna paint a playground, but just the 40-minute ride there, I was literally just staring out the window, just daydreaming about being a youth pastor and how God spoke to me. It was just that right there was life changing. Oh my gosh,
Wow.
that was crazy.
So
Yeah.
you felt an initial thing way back at the camp when that sermon was preached, you heard the gospel, but then God hit you like a truck on
Oh
the
yeah.
trip.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So what is it about, like, in that time, what is it about um, being a youth pastor that you feel God's calling you to, equipping you for? What sort of things are you feeling in that way?
I just something that I realized is that like teenagers are like the main demographic of people that are just like the most depressed, and they just like my heart breaks for my friends because a lot of my friends, I mean, there's been suicide attempts, there's been depression, and it's a mess, and I just kind of want to show them the hope that they have if they become Christians. So um yeah, that's probably the main thing that I just can't wait for. Just because I want them to see the hope. I want to save them from hell, and yeah.
That's awesome. So you feel like being able to work uh, with people that are your age right now, because God really spoke to you at this time, is like the best usage of who God made you to be. I think that's cool. I think it was through. I worked at a summer camp as well, at a church camp as an example, or when I was there. But God didn't speak to me there. He spoke to me through working with adults for whatever reason. Even though I was part of the youth group, it was like it just didn't line up. So God ended up using me in a way that was around how I was called, and in the same way with you, in this time that you're called in this mission trip. Tell me a little something about mission trips for people that have never been on one. What is it like? What is it? Why do Christians go on mission trips? Do you know, like, what's the point of going and being only there for a little bit of time? And what impact did it have on you and you and the group that you went with? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I would say that there are like two main reasons for missions trips. The first one would be to just like as a church group, just to like just to impact the world around you, and to like just do these acts, like when we were painting the playground, and just loving on some kids, just playing basketball in Foursquare with them, and just things like that, like just through doing that, just showing them the love of God through that, just trying not to trying not to just straight up just spike the ball in Foursquare at a bunch of like 8-year-olds.
Yeah, that's a good start.
Yeah, just try to just love on them and just try to show them the light. But that's one reason, just impact the world around you. And then the second one I would say would be to I feel like it's really good just to like show like people who are involved in the missions trip, like what it's like to be a missionary and what it's like to be in some kind of ministry. Like it's just to show, like it could show God could speak through that and show, hey, maybe you are supposed to be a missionary. Hey, maybe you're supposed to go into some sort of a ministry. So I mean, yeah, I'd say those are the two main reasons. And was there a second question that you wanted to ask me?
Well, actually, that was included into the idea that also sometimes um, the group of people, we learn about God through His Word, through serving Him, and through each other. So I'd say, along with those two things, actually bringing together people and experiencing something and strengthening the body, like as a group. I think God works through mission trips that way as well. But as for that, was pretty much the question that I was going to ask. What is it like? Here's one question that I have to ask. I mean, you're a
Yeah.
super bright 15-year-old kid. Like, what is it like being a Christian and a teenager? Like, tell me a little bit about. I came to Christ later in my journey, I think. Tell me a little bit about what that's like.
I could tell you one thing that's just really frustrating. It is very rare that you'll come across someone as young as me that's actually a Christian. I mean, you'll have people who, like, before the process happened for me. I mean, like, I kind of thought I was a Christian, but I really wasn't. I was just thinking about myself and being depressed. So yeah, like, it's just, and a lot of teenagers are that way. Like, they could be raised in Christian families, they could go to church, and they'll just think they're saved because of that. But, like, it's very rare that you come across someone as young as me that's really Christian, and it's just frustrating because, like, when you want to have, like, it's like, I watch some of Pastor Scott's sermons, and like, he talks about how important community is in some of them, and it's hard for me to find, like, Christian community of, like, people as young as me. Like, everyone in my church, like, the people who are truly saved, like, there's one person in my, there are, like, very few people in my church community that are, like, in my age group that are actually saved, I feel. But, like, it's just kind of hard to find people. Like, it's very rare. It's hard to find.
So you said the term. Yeah, awesome. I love that you said that. You said the term. There are some people that go to church, and there are some people, that are coming, but it's rare to find someone, in your words, that is actually a Christian. What do you mean by that? For people that are listening in, saying, "Hey, I mean, I'm 15, I'm 20, I'm 50, and I go to church. Does that not mean that perhaps that I'm not definitely a Christian?" What do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, yeah, in the famous words of Kroitor Collective, you only get a trip to heaven if you live in for it. So you could go to church as much as you want, and like, if you're not, like, you go to church every Sunday, and just then the rest of your life just do whatever you want, and just go to church because, oh, it's the right thing to do because I'm a Christian, But you're not really living for it if just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday and Saturday you're just living for yourself, and just only Sunday you're going to church and
For 1 hour.
Yeah, exactly. If 1 hour a week of your life is about just, like, God, then, I mean, like, that's not really enough. You got to live for it.
It's interesting because I was just talking with my friend Mark this morning about the first commandment of have no other gods, right? So that He's God, right? He's one God. And so we think about the fact, like, how often, if God is never in the top 10 of your priorities, well, He's supposed to be number one, but I think about sin in my life. When I look back, God never even made the list, you know? And so there's, like, a difference, a change that happens, that God, like, works in our lives to change the things that we want to, a little bit. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of what you're saying. I really appreciate that. So what would you say, since we're coming up to time, what would you say as a piece of advice for someone that might not be sure what can someone do if they're starting to ask questions, but they're not really sure that they are a Christian, like you're talking about? Maybe they're just somebody that goes to church culturally. What would you say to somebody like that as encouragement or to help them to the next step? Was there something you'd say to the 15-year-old out there that's wondering, what can I do to know if I'm really a Christian?
Yeah. So honestly, like something about Christianity is like I mean, it's unlike from every other religion in the world. Like it's not just about these are the laws and you must follow them, and if you follow them, you are getting to heaven.
Right.
It's a relationship with God. Like, and if you are just like if you're reading the Bible, not just to like, if you're reading the Bible with the right intentions to and praying and doing all these things for the right intentions to increase, like to nourish your relationship with God, then I would say you're a Christian. So I mean, like if you don't find yourself doing that, then I mean, I would just I would talk to your pastor. I'd talk to your youth pastor. I'd talk to someone and just start being discipled and just start like try to make try as hard as you can. Just pray and pray that God gives you the like the want, the desire
Yeah.
to read this book, and just just try to nourish that relationship. Pretend it's just someone in real life that you want to become friends with. All right, just engage with them, and you do that with God too.
Yeah, I love that. I love two things about what you said specifically. Number one, I love that you said, hey, Christianity is different than every other religion. Right now, we're in a time where people are asking the questions. I'm like, what's different? How is this, why does Christianity think they have like the hold on the idea of salvation? What is different? And it's this idea of, instead of us thinking, hey, if we follow and do enough good stuff, then God will love us. That's not the gospel. The gospel is God loves us while we were still sinners, right? So he changes our hearts while we still are in opposition to him, not when we get our lives together and look perfect. But then what you said is, try with all your might to get into the position where you can have that relationship. And then the implication there is that God, who's working in your life, he's going to help you want to have that relationship. And so if you're feeling right now that you're like, man, I don't, but I want to, that could be the first ways in which God is really moving you. And that should be an assurance of your faith too, right? So that's awesome, Josh. Totally smart beyond your years. We are at the point here where it's the end of our time, the 30-minute mark. I always end with this one question, and you saw last week your dad answer the question, but I think you bring a really unique perspective to this question. Why is God awesome, in your own words? Why would you say God is awesome?
Yeah, I would say God is awesome for two reasons. The first reason is because, just in my life, before I became a Christian, I was just so depressed and I hated myself and I hated everything. And when you become a Christian and you realize that you realize there's nothing to worry about. You're going to heaven, and the only thing you really need to worry about is saving others. I mean, you don't have to worry about if your relationship is close enough to God, and you're just he just changes you. He changes everything about you. You don't worry about your weight if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. He doesn't worry about you don't worry about how many friends you have. It's all about God, nurturing your relationship with him, and he just changes you. And then the second reason is because just for a second, just picture hell. It is the worst. Our minds can't even comprehend how horrible that would be. And God, knowing that, made like the biggest sacrifice ever, and he sent the son to die on a cross. And if you've seen it may sound, oh, okay, he died on a cross for us. I've heard that a million times, but if you see Passion of the Christ, you'll see how much torment he went through to save us. And like he just, I mean, seriously, he reconciled us with God, and I mean, like, he saved us, and we can have a relationship with him, and we're saved from hell. I mean, we praise God.
Yeah, praise God.
Yeah.
Think about the cross. The word excruciating comes from the idea of the cross. That word cross is in there. So yeah, the fact that the God of the universe, who you said earlier in this was immaterial, right? He becomes incarnate in flesh, right? He takes on the properties of this world, and he takes that on and then is crucified in our place. Man, I love that. Josh, you're awesome. More importantly, God is awesome. I love what he's doing in your life. I'm excited for the way in which he's using you. If you are someone that's listening right now that wants to share your testimony, there's no testimony that's too big or too small. God is working. You see how much he's working in a 15-year-old kid. That's not a lot of time on this planet. And so if you're watching and you want to be a part of this, in the comment section below, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you can click the link that will take you to sign up just like Josh did. Josh, thanks again for being on the show.
It was great to be here.
Yeah, it was great. It was really a fun time. And until next time, remember that God is awesome. We'll catch you next time.